Hey everyone. Someone suggested I try writing erotica, or at least work it into some of my stories. So that's what I've decided to do with this one. In case you have underage kids, you might want to listen to it with a headset. So just a warning, today's story is a bit explicit. To begin, I'd like to preface by saying the Hmong are a spiritual and superstitious people. In general, lots of them believe in ghosts, spirits, and demons. As such, some believe these entities can attach or even possess us. If that happens, your loved ones will have to seek a shaman. The shaman will then perform some rituals to see what the cause is. After doing so, they'll perform a larger one to heal the affected person. The scale of it will depend on the severity of the issue. What I'm about to say isn't isolated to just the Hmong, since others do it as well. So during these rituals, sometimes an exorcism may be performed, and they'll lock or trick the entities into dolls or objects, then dispose of them far away from the reaches of others. At least that's usually how it goes. However, sometimes people still stumble upon or trip over these things while wandering around the woods. Sometimes they just happen to be near and say the wrong things, and the entities will be drawn to them. An example is MV Horror's story about the lady's husband not leaving her alone. Check out the story if you haven't already. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. Personally, I've also had this happen to me when I was a little boy, and I was nowhere close to the woods. I just happened to say the wrong things at the wrong time. Anyway, you already know what to do. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Without further ado, let's get on with the story. Swallowed in Darkness. John and his group of friends had been planning this camping trip for weeks. They were all eager to escape the hustle and bustle of city life and immerse themselves in the tranquility of the great outdoors. As they arrived at the campsite, the sun was still high in the sky, casting golden rays over the rugged landscape. With the tents set up, the group wasted no time in exploring their surroundings. They spent the day hiking along winding trails, fishing in the clear waters of the nearby river, and cooling off with refreshing dips in the natural swimming holes they stumbled upon. As evening approached, the friends gathered around the campfire for a hearty barbecue feast. The savory smell of sizzling meat and the scent of aromatic roasting tomato pepper over the flames filled the air. With their bellies full and spirits high, they laughed and swapped stories late into the night. The sounds of nature providing the perfect backdrop to their campsite camaraderie. But amidst the laughter and chatter, John found himself longing for a moment alone with Alicia as they stole glances at one another. The two have been seeing each other for about a month, but they wanted to keep things discreet from the others. The sheer tents made privacy impossible, and he couldn't shake the desire for some one-on-one time with her. As evening wore on and drinks flowed freely, John's inhibitions faded, and he made a spur-of-the-moment decision. With a mischievous grin, John walked over and whispered to Alicia, suggesting they sneak off into the forest for some time together. She giggled in response, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she agreed to his proposal. As the campfire flickered and the laughter of their friends echoed in the distance, John excused himself under the pretext of needing to use the bathroom. He waited for Alicia to join him, his heart racing with anticipation. Moments later, she emerged from the group, a playful smile on her lips, and they set off together into the darkness of the forest. The night enveloped them like a thick blanket, the moon casting airy shadows among the trees. John and Alicia stumbled along the uneven terrain, their hands occasionally brushing against each other in the darkness. They dared not bring a light source, fearing it would alert the others of their escapade. Suddenly, John tripped over something and fell.
Are you okay?
Alicia whispered, concern lacing her voice. John chuckled nervously, brushing off the fall as nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Pressing on, they eventually found a secluded spot against a sturdy tree, shielded from view by the dense foliage. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, they leaned in close, their lips meeting in a fervent kiss. He slipped his hands under her tank top, rubbing and caressing the silky smooth skin of Alicia's body. John worked his way from the upper back of her torso, peeling off her bra and tank top, and discarding them off to the side, along with his own t-shirt. They continued kissing, one massaging the other's tongue with their own. Alicia exposed her neck, inviting her lover to it. John gladly accepted, kissing the soft tenderness of it, while gingerly tracing her curves down to her backside. He kissed Alesia's neck down to her tit, devouring it, nipple and all. She shuddered with pleasure at that. With each passing second, John could feel his cock rising and hardening inside his shorts. He picked Alesia up, pinning his lean body onto her slender frame against the tree. Supporting her weight, John palmed the underside of Alesia's tight ass firmly in both hands as he began slowly rocking her up and down, grinding the rock-hard shaft inside his shorts between her legs, all the while nibbling at her earlobe, then gently biting and sucking the side of her neck. As he did so, her supple tits pressed up against his bare chest. Like a serpent, Alesia coiled and wound her limbs around John's neck and waist. Aroused, she let out a soft moan, wanting the same to be done to her ever-ripening fruit between her thighs. John and Alesia continued their intimate moment, but before they could take the heat of their passion up another level, a rustling sound broke the silence from behind them. At first, John dismissed it as the wind playing tricks on his ears, but then he heard faint laughter, the unmistakable sound of a woman's voice echoing through the darkness. A shiver ran down John's spine as fear began to creep in, replacing the warmth of desire with a cold sense of unease. His senses heightened. Every rustle of leaves and whisper of the wind now felt like a threat lurking in the shadows. John abruptly paused his pursuit of pleasure and glanced behind him, searching the darkness for any sign of the source. But there was nothing, just the empty expanse of the night.
What is it?
Nothing. It's nothing.
Despite the growing apprehension, John turned his attention back to Alesia, trying to ignore the unsettling sounds. But with each passing moment, the laughter seemed to grow louder, more insistent, echoing through the trees like a haunting melody. Finally, unable to shake the feeling of dread that gripped him, John suggested they head back to camp.
Sorry, Alesia, I can't. I want to. Really, I do, but I just can't.
What's the matter?
I'm just not feeling too hot at the moment.
Alesia pressed him, sensing something was wrong, but John brushed off her inquiries, insisting he just needed to sleep it off. They put their clothes back on and reluctantly abandoned their secluded spot, making their way back to their campsite. However, the laughter still echoed in John's ears, haunting him every step of the way. Late at night, when everyone was asleep, John found himself unable to do the same. He laid in the tent, tossing and turning, the events of the evening replaying in his mind. As he listened to the sounds of the forest outside, a sense of unease settled over him once again. He heard faint rummaging noises coming from outside the tent. At first he tried to convince himself it was just an animal scavenging for food, but the noise persisted, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. Then something called out to him, a soft voice whispering in the wind. John's heart pounded in his chest as he sat up, straining to hear. The shuffling of footsteps drew closer, and a chill ran down his spine as he realized the sound was coming right from outside his tent. John laid there, his mind filled with dread.
Psst, John, are you awake?
He was relieved to hear it was only his lover.
Yeah. Why are you up?
Well, we do have some unfinished business.
In that moment, his excitement drowned out any negative thoughts he had previously. John emerged from the tent to see Alesia at the edge of the campsite, beckoning him to follow her. He told her to wait, but she giggled mischievously and darted off into the dark forest. John chased after her, his heart pounding with anticipation. The darkness swallowed her figure as he struggled to keep up, his feet stumbling over roots and rocks. No matter how fast he ran, he couldn't close the distance between them. Soon, he lost sight of her completely.
Come on, John, hurry, come get me!
Trepidation washed over the man, and he came to a halt, realizing something was very wrong. He turned to head back to the campsite, but the light from it had vanished, leaving him surrounded by impenetrable darkness. Alesia's voice continued to taunt him from all directions, laughing and mocking him.
What's the matter, John? Is something wrong?
Who are you? Why are you doing this? Please, I beg you, please stop this.
The entity's only response was more laughter, and it only grew louder, echoing around him. Suddenly, the ground beneath John's feet began to give way like quicksand. Though he couldn't see them, John felt the icy grip of hands around his ankles pulling him under. He struggled against it, but it was hopeless. He was sinking way too fast. Whatever it was wrapped its long stretchy arms around John's body, forcing him further into the ground. Darkness enveloped him as he sank deeper and deeper, his breath stolen away until there was nothing left but silence. The next morning, everyone started looking for John when they noticed he was missing. They called and searched for a good portion of the morning. Alesia finally found him standing in the middle of the forest about 50 yards from their camp. He was already dressed up and was standing there completely still. Alesia called out to him.
John, what are you doing over there? Everyone's looking for you.
The man gave no response and was motionless in that spot. Alesia called for the others, alerting them she'd found John, and made her way to him. When she got closer, she could hear he was talking to someone, but couldn't hear them say anything back. Alesia called for him again, and finally he turned around. He greeted her with a smile, making his way in her direction. Alesia asked, with a concerned look on her face.
What are you doing over here? We were all worried about you. Is everything okay?
Everything is just perfect.
John smiled as he walked past Alesia. Something seemed off about him. He seemed cold and even distant. For as long as Alesia had known John, he'd always been affectionate with her, especially away from the eyes of the others. Alesia expected a good morning kiss or for him to wrap her in his arms, but he did neither of those things. Instead, she watched as John continued walking away. She turned, scanning the area to see why he was so preoccupied earlier. Then she saw it, and her blood turned to ice. In that moment, a vision of John tripping and falling down from the previous night flashed in her mind. About 20 feet in front of her, littered all over the ground, was an overturned bowl, grains of rice, and old burnt red and yellow sticks of incense. Lying face down was a little doll in monk clothes, and next to it was the dried up carcass of a chicken. The thing was picked clean. Alesia felt a gust of wind brushed up against her. Surprised, she whipped around to find John standing directly behind her. She had no explanation how he'd been able to sneak up on her without a sound. John gave no expression, but there was something about him that made her deathly afraid of him. She tried to talk, but the words only managed to get caught in her throat. Alesia tried to get away, but her legs tripped over one another, and she fell back on her ass. The sun rose behind John, casting a huge, dark, elongated shadow that loomed over the terrified woman. The gangly shadow had extraordinarily large hands dangling by its sides, and sharp nails protruding from its fingers. It was then Alesia knew there was something terribly wrong.